A number of promises that President Trump made. Now, one of them is that he would increase tariffs on China to something like 60%, maybe even higher. We're already seeing that there are signs that may not be the case, or that he may decide to pursue a deal. The sort of second set of promises is that he might be able to build perhaps a better relationship with China than the Biden administration because of his personal relationship with President Xi. That's less of a specific promise than a hope, I think, and we'll see if that's actually possible. President Trump has named a number of people to his cabinet. It's pretty clear that, as of now, there's going to be competition over China policy. There may not be one China policy, there may be many China policies. On the one hand, we could probably expect a more hawkish China policy, more focused on competition and confrontation out of the State Department and the National Security Council. On the other hand, it's possible that the economic agencies will have a more nuanced approach. They may decide that they're more concerned about breaking off certain economic ties between the U.S. and China, and many of the leads of those economic agencies have extensive experience in finance and business, which may color their perspective. I think it's hard to say clearly how that personal relationship is going to unfold in the period ahead. As we know, President Trump invited President Xi to his inauguration. On the other hand, President Xi pulled out all the stops for President Trump in the first term, where President Trump came to China, got to visit the Forbidden City, and had a pretty incredible time by all accounts. And yet, despite all those steps, the relationship still deteriorated. So from President Xi's perspective, he may be skeptical that the personal touch is going to necessarily deliver the outcomes that he cares about. At the end of the day, the personal relationship matters because it's ultimately the leaders who have to clear up misperception, miscommunication, and keep the relationship from totally bottoming out. But there are differences of interest that we cannot ignore. And the purpose of American policy on China isn't to have a good relationship. It's to secure American interests, and that's where there's going to be some divergence. It's unclear exactly whether Trump's approach on Taiwan will be his approach or the approach of his staff. His staff is pretty concerned about Taiwan's current position. They want to do more to support Taiwan, which is a laudable thing. On the other hand, President Trump has said that he doesn't think Taiwan is all that defensible, and he's questioned whether the United States should even defend Taiwan when Taiwan is paying the U.S. for protection money. So we just don't know how that's all going to net out. Will President Trump decide that he wants to pursue a deal with China? And in that case, will he decide to say, well, maybe I'm not going to go so far in the direction of supporting Taiwan? Or will he say instead, I'm very upset with China. I'm going to use the Taiwan card as a way of getting back. It's too early to tell right now, but what is clear is that there are different views between the president and probably many core members of his team. It's not clear just exactly yet what the Trump administration's approach is going to be on a whole host of very controversial and sensitive issues. What exactly is the Trump administration going to do on tariffs? What will it do on export controls? What will it do on Taiwan? What will it do on human rights? There's a record we have in the first term, but we're not sure exactly how much of that carries over into the second term. And even in the first term, there's quite a bit of unpredictability, volatility, and competition among different factions within the administration. All that said, one thing is clear. There's increasingly a bipartisan consensus on China policy issues. Many members of Trump's team are a part of that consensus, but the question is whether or not President Trump is part of that consensus or instead stands outside it. The staff's approach is largely bipartisan, focused on competition with China, rooted in many ways in a shared congressional view of the nature of the challenge and what needs to be done for the U.S. to stay ahead. President Trump's approach, though, is much more transactional, much more rooted in his own confidence in his ability to get a deal, and as a result, not necessarily competitive or even confrontational. He might be pursuing the art of the deal on China, whereas his staff might be pursuing the art of great power competition. And at the end of the day, we don't know how those impulses will net out.